So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? You can't play the kartals. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Is there another pair of kartals with a longer string? Maybe it's just because my fingers are fat. Yeah, that's better. Good. These are more like dustbin lids. Do you know why we only have bad kartals in the temple room? Do you want to know why? Or do you know why? Because they're so bad, nobody will steal them. All the good ones got taken a long time ago. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Abha Girivardha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardha Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Ravana-chari Jamuna Ravana-chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jana Vallabha Girivardha Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunate Ravana-chari Avanacha Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Asto Tadasara Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Mayapura Navadvitam Ki Sri Purushottam Chetra Ki Sri Ganga Mai Ki Jai Sri Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai Shri Radha Ballabha Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandira Ki Jai. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, the Summum Bonum, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction, text number 43. Is that right? Yep. Jyotir yataivo dakapati veshvada samira veganugatam vibhavyate Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuyati. Jyotir yataivo dakapata vishpadaha. Samira veganugatam vibhavyate. Evam svamaya rachateshva sopumam. Guneshu raganugato vimuhyati. Jyoti yataivo dakapati vishvadaha. Samira veganugatam vibhayate. Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuhyati. Yotir yataivo dakapati vishvadaha. Samira veganugatam vibhavyate. Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuyati. Jyoti yataivo dakapati vishvadaha. Samira veganugatam vibhavyate. Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuyati. Jyoti yataivo dakapati vishvadaha. Samira veganugatam vibhavyate. Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuyati. Jyoti yataivo dakapati vishvataha. Samira veganugatam vibhavyate. Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuyati. Ladies? Jyoti yataivo dakapati vishvadaha. Samira veganugatam vibhavyate. Evam svamaya rachiteshva sopuman. Guneshu raganugato vimuyati. Jyoti, the luminaries in the sky, such as the sun, the moon, and the stars. Yata, as. Eva, indeed. Udaka, in water. Pativeshu, or in other liquids, like oil. Adaha, directly. Samira Vega Anugatam, being forced by the movements of the wind. Vibhavyate, appear in different shapes. Evam, in this way. Svamaya rachiteshu, in the situation created by one's mental concoctions. Aso, the living entity. Puman, person. Guneshu, in the material world, manifested by the modes of nature. Raga anugataha, according to his attachment. Vimuyati, becomes bewildered by identification. When the luminaries in the sky, such as the moon, the sun and the stars, are reflected in liquids like oil or water, they appear to be of different shapes. Sometimes round, sometimes long, and so on, because of the movements of the wind. Similarly, when the living entity, the soul, is absorbed in materialistic thoughts, he accepts various manifestations as his own identity because of ignorance. In other words, one is bewildered by mental concoctions because of agitation from the material modes of nature. Purport. This verse is a very good example by which to understand the different positions of the eternal spiritual soul in the material world, and how the soul takes on different bodies. Dehantara praptihi. The moon is stationary and is one, but when it is reflected in water or oil, it appears to take different shapes because of the movements of the wind. Similarly, the soul is the eternal servant of Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when put into the material modes of nature, it takes different bodies, sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, a dog, a tree, and so on. By the influence of Maya, the illusory potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity thinks that he is this person, that person, American, Indian, cat, dog, tree, or whatever. This is called Maya. When one is freed from this bewilderment and understands that the soul does not belong to any shape of this material world, one is situated on the spiritual platform, Brahma Bhuta. This realization is sometimes explained as nirakar, or formlessness. This formlessness, however, does not mean that the soul has no form. The soul has form, but the external agitating form he has acquired because of material contamination is false. Similarly, God is also described as nirakara, which means that God has no material form, but is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Satchit Ananda Vigraha, but his material forms are temporary or illusory. Both the living entity and the Supreme Lord have original spiritual forms, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, but the Lord, the Supreme, does not change his form. The Lord appears as he is, whereas a living entity appears because material nature forces him to accept different forms. When the living entity receives these different forms, he identifies with them and not with his original spiritual form. As soon as the living entity returns to his original spiritual form and understanding, he immediately surrenders to the supreme form, the personality of Godhead. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 19. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavamam prapajyate. When the living entity, after many, many births in different forms, returns to his original form of Krishna consciousness, he immediately surrenders under the lotus feet of the supreme form, Krishna. This is liberation. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 54, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakanchati Sama Saveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Surrender under the supreme form is the result of bhakti. This bhakti, or understanding of one's own position, is the complete liberation. As long as one is under an impersonal understanding of the absolute truth, he is not in pure knowledge, but must still struggle for pure knowledge. Klesho dikataras tesham avyakta shakta chetasam. Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, text 5. Although one may be spiritually advanced, if one is attached to the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, one must still work very hard, as indicated by the words klesho dikataraha, which mean greater suffering. A devotee, however, easily attains his original position as a spiritual form and understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form. Krishna himself explains the forms of the living entities in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he clearly says to Arjuna that he, Arjuna, and all other living entities who were previously in their original forms are separate individual identities. They were individuals in the past, they are now situated in individuality, and in the future they will all continue to maintain their individual forms. The only difference is that the conditioned living entity appears in various material forms, whereas Krishna appears in his original spiritual form. Unfortunately, those who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge think that Krishna is like one of them, and that his form is like their material forms. Avajananti mammudha manushim tanumasritam. Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 11. Krishna is never puffed up by material knowledge and is therefore called achyuta, whereas the living entities fall down and are agitated by material nature. This is the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entities. In this connection, it is to be noted that Vasudeva, who was situated in a transcendental position, advised Kamsa not to commit further sinful activities. Kamsa, a representative of the demons, was always ready to kill Krishna or God, whereas Vasudeva represents a transcendentally situated person to whom Krishna is born. Vasudeva is the son of Vasudeva. Vasudeva wanted his brother-in-law Kamsa to refrain from the sinful act of killing his sister, since the result of being agitated by material nature would be that Kamsa would have to accept a body in which to suffer again and again. Elsewhere, in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text 4, Rishabdeva also says, Nasadu manye yata atmano yam asanapi kleshata asadeha. As long as the living entity is entangled in the fruitive activities of so-called happiness and distress, he will receive a particular type of body in which to endure the three kinds of suffering due to material nature. Tritapa yantrana. An intelligent person, therefore, must free himself from the influence of the three modes of material nature and revive his original spiritual body by engaging in the service of the Supreme Person, Krishna. As long as one is materially attached, one must accept the process of birth, death, old age, and disease. One is therefore advised that an intelligent person, instead of being entangled in so-called good and bad fruitive activities, should engage his life in advancing in Krishna consciousness, so that instead of accepting another material body, Chaktva Deham Puna Janma Nayati, he will return home back to Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Sulakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tashmaye Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahiyam Tadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. Long purport. But a fairly simple message. It's not very complicated. So let us reflect on the example that's given here in the verse. Hands up, those of you who heard the verse. Okay, what were the rest of you doing? Okay, that's good. Some people heard the verse, right. Now there's a difference between hearing and listening, right? What's the difference? What's the difference between hearing and listening? Anybody like to venture?
I guess if you're hearing something, it's just like listening to something is just listening to your voice, but hearing it is to just register and make sense of it.
Or the other way around. Yes, hearing, just hearing the sound, and listening, paying attention to what's being said, right? Different. We teach in the teacher training course different kinds of hearing or listening. You know, there's the husband listening to his wife, right? And he's saying, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear. Right? But she told him to do something and he didn't do anything, right? So he wasn't actually listening. No? So anyway, let's assume that everybody was hearing and listening. So what is the example that Vasudeva is giving to Kamsa? Hands up if you know what the example is. Prabhu, what is it?
The image of the star, sun, moon, etc.
Yes.
To be distorted in the reflection that we can see in the water or oil.
Yes. Yep. Good. And
Therefore the soul takes distorted form of a physical form.
Okay, missing slightly a little bit there. Subhya, what's your understanding? Loudly. Yes, good. There's a little bit more. There's more though. What's the extra bit? It's good. She got pretty much 80%. 80%. Pretty good, Subhya. You got about 60%. But there's a missing 20% that's important. What is it? Anybody like to say? Raise your hands. Intelligent. Well, that's the other 5%. It's in the purport. And good that you recognise that. But what's the missing bit that Subhya could add to complete the analogy? Because there's an analogy here. Gopa.
The wrong idea is that the soul observing the mental concoction identifies with wrong identities because of ignorance. And
Yes.
the pre-mortal material.
And is otherwise what?
Soul is not, the conception is not disturbed otherwise. Just like the devotees are unaffected.
Yes, that's right. That's the bit. That's the missing bit. And it's important to understand. So this concept is interesting. That the moon, the sun, the stars, all, although the moon does change, by the way. But I think, is it today is a full moon? Or is it tomorrow? What's the date today? 3rd. Today's the full moon. Did anybody have trouble sleeping last night? Well, I did. And I looked at, I could see the light from the moon. Sort of, Have you noticed that? Sometimes hard to sleep, full moon. This is the influence of the material energy, various influences. So, but let's assume the moon is full, as it will be tonight, right? But reflected in different bodies of water, and those bodies of water being blown by the wind, right? Creates movements in the water. And those movements of the water make the moon and the sun and the stars appear differently, in different shapes. Right? Yet, they remain the same. Right? So, that as an example is then described as the relationship between the soul. Actually, Prabhupada expands on this in the purport. And he talks about two souls, actually. Right? Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about two souls. The Kshetrajna, right? The knower of the field of activities, and the Sarvajna, right? The one who knows all about everything, right? Prabhupada gives the example of the king and the landholder. The landholder, he knows his plot of land, right? Kshetra, or field, right? Fields for a farmer, right? But the king knows everybody's field, right? And usually is interested in the production of what's going on in the fields, right? Why? Why is the king interested in everybody's fields? Do you think? Huh? He's a shareholder, yes. So what does he want? Huh? He wants his tax. Give me the tax, right? A certain amount of grains belong to me, right? So the example is the living entity is the knower of his field of activity, which is his body, right? This is our field of activity, and we know what's going on in this body. And Krishna, as the Sarvajna, he knows what's going on in everybody's body. That's the difference between the two knowers, right, of the field of activity. And so in this purport, Prabhupada talks about Krishna's form, which is eternal, Satchit Ananda, doesn't change, right? And the forms of the living entity. And the forms of the living entity change as a consequence of their interaction with the material energy and the modes of nature that are required by the living entity. And in this example, the movement of the living entity by the modes of material nature is analogous with the movement of the water within which the sun or the moon or the stars are reflected by the wind, right? So the example here is that the living entity, like the sun and the moon and the stars, is in its original spiritual position one, right? And it's interesting here, Prabhupada brings up this point, which is not really mentioned in the verse, but Prabhupada brings this up more than once. He brings it up quite often in his commentaries, that the living entity and Krishna are Nirākara, right? Formless. But Prabhupada explains what this formlessness is. It's the living entity and Krishna on the transcendental platform have no material form, right? They have a spiritual form. That's the source. The source, my mum said to me once, God isn't a person, is he? which is when you think about it, an interesting statement in and of itself. God isn't a person, is he? As soon as you refer to a he or a her, you're talking about a person, right? But this is a very common misconception broadly in spiritual circles, where people think that God is formless and that we also are formless, that we don't have a form, that the forms that we've accepted are illusory, which they are, right? They are. Even in this example, the forms are illusory. But that's the material form. And as you mentioned, intelligently, the intelligent person who understands the nature of the forms in the material world. What is it? Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. They understand of the temporary and impermanent, there's no duration. Now this is Bhagavad Gita. This is spiritual knowledge 101, right? Beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So these material forms that are always changing, right? They have no permanence, right? But that which is permanent is eternal. And it requires a very subtle and purified observation of the workings of the material energy and the spiritual energy to separate the impermanent from the permanent. Right? And of course we know the permanent is the most subtle and the most hard to perceive its existence separated from the material energy. Right? Hard to perceive. Because we know when somebody dies, it's very clear. 1 minute we've got a living person, then the next minute we've got a dead body. Right? So what happened? The body's still there, the person appears to be still there, but no life. So that very subtle spiritual element that makes us a living, conscious person has gone. Right? But to differentiate between the eternal spirit soul and the material body, not so easy. Right? Not so easy. And is being described here. As a consequence of the influence of the material energy, right? And that's like the water in the bucket or the water in the ocean. And just as the wind blows the water or the liquid to create the waves, that the reflection of the permanent sun, moon and stars makes them appear to be different. So similarly, the modes of material nature move, push, like the wind, the material bodies, right? Originally, in our original position, we're spiritual. And so Prabhupada's point here at the end is, real purpose of life is to understand that identity, right? Rather than be caught up with happiness and distress, fruitive activities that develop the so-called material position of the living entity. And the real purpose of our existence is not to improve, so-called improve our situation, because, as we know, Yehi samspasaja boga dukkayonaya evate adyantavanta kunteya na teshu ramate buddha. Right? Happiness and distress. What is it? Labha labho, jaya jayo. Gain or loss, happiness or distress, it's inevitable. It's the cycle of life. Right? How many of you have got a job? Raise your hands if you are working. Okay. How do you feel when you get your pay every week? Right? You open up your banking app, right? And you have a look and you see money in. And so how do you feel? Yoo-hoo! Right? But then how do you feel when you go to Woolworths or Coles Right? You get all the things that you want, pile them up in the trolley, and then you go through the checkout. And then you look at the bill. Horrific, right? It's just like Achyuta Katha and Padmavati have just come from India, right? And I asked Padmavati, what do you like about Australia? And she said, it's very peaceful here, right? Very peaceful and very quiet. But everything's so expensive. I said, you've got to stop thinking in rupees. How many here of you think in rupees? Raise your hands. How many of you are not being honest? Huh? How many of you are thinking in dollars? Everybody. That's relief. Although I don't necessarily believe you. So, you know, life is made up of phases, right? Gain and loss. Happiness, distress. Have you noticed? Yeah. And what's Krishna's advice? To tikshava. We have to be tolerant of the happiness and the distress because it's always going to happen. Even if you're a devotee. Maybe even more if you're a devotee. More distress, right? Maybe. Look at the life of the Pandavas. Did the Pandavas have an easy life? No. But what does Queen Kunti say? What does Queen Kunti say? Let those calamities come again and again and again. Huh? How many of you pray for calamities? When you see Radha Ballabha in the morning, you say, please give me more suffering. Huh? Hands up if you're praying for more suffering. Or even sometimes devotees are scared to surrender to Krishna, right? Because they know, ooh, that might be dangerous. Krishna might test me, right? I think I'm a great advanced devotee, but then Krishna teaches me that I'm actually still a neophyte, right? Which is actually not bad. That's good. Right? Prabhupada says, what is it? Gopi Bhava. Chaktva namasesha mandala pati srenim tuchavat gopi bhava rasam ratambo nidhi. Anyway, the Goswamis were always absorbed in the mood of the gopis. And they weren't thinking, oh, now I've got Krishna. Right? Prabhupada actually makes a joke of this. He was talking to George Harrison. I mentioned this the other day. And Prabhupada says a devotee in a Gaudiya line never says, I've got Krishna. Krishna's mine. They're praying, Hey Radhe Brajadevi Ke Chalalite, Hey Nanda, Suno Kutaha. Where are you? Are you at Govardhan? Are you on the bank of the Jamuna? Where are you? So the mood of a devotee is always looking for Krishna. Feeling separation from Krishna, Gopi Bhava in the mood of the gopis, right? So when Krishna left Vrindavan, and for a lot of the time, the gopis were thinking, when will I be with Krishna? Krishna, where are you? Right? That was their mood. Very interesting. Not thinking, oh, Krishna, can you make life easy for me? Huh? How many of you are praying to Krishna to make life easy for you? Yeah, okay, honest. Thank you. Krishna, make life, I'm your dedicated devotee, please make life easy for me. So, Krishna's instruction is happiness, distress, victory and defeat, profit and loss. These are the natural sequences of life. And one has to tolerate these. And the main purpose of action, of activity, is to pursue our spiritual life. This is the main purpose. And, we will profit and we will lose. Right? It's just what happens in life. But the most important thing is to pursue, at least for the devotees, their spiritual practice. Why? Because that spiritual practice moves us to that transcendental platform where the influence of the modes of material nature on our consciousness is transcended. And so we can get above this bodily concept of life. Thinking, Prabhupada, what does Prabhupada say? What's the first designation he mentions in the purport? Starts with an A. And is not Australian. What does he mention? American. Right? Because Prabhupada's preaching to his disciples. But then what does he say? What comes after American? Indian. We're not American, we're not Indian. So Prabhupada's preaching to himself. Well, probably not. He's preaching to us. Right? And then what does he say? Dog, cat, tree. Right? So as a result of the modes of material nature, we accept different bodies, and then we identify with those bodies. Right? And we do, we discriminate. The boys don't go into the girls' toilets, right? We discriminate. When the traffic light goes red, what do? Stop. In Australia, you stop, right? One of the things in India you have to be super vigilant about is stop signs. Because not everybody follows the same order, right? Red, green, orange. In Australia, everything's pretty ordered. Although, in Australia, if there's people visiting from Europe or from America, you've got to watch out because sometimes they drive on the wrong side of the road, right? Horrible crashes exist. Especially in WA, places where the tourists come, and then they're driving down the road on the wrong side of the road, totally oblivious to the fact that they're on the wrong side of the road. Right? So, we do discriminate. We have to discriminate. But the focus of our discrimination is on separating between matter and spirit and not being affected by the water, that's the body, being moved or pushed by the modes of material nature. Although that's how we get, that's our material existence. And Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita very clearly, especially in the 14th chapter, the influence of the modes of material nature. And Prabhupada quotes the verse here, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, that our main focus is to come to the spiritual platform, not be influenced by the modes of material nature. And that's what sadhana bhakti is all about. It's following the order of the spiritual master, following Rupa Goswami and the 6 Goswamis' example of engaging in bhakti. Right? And that doesn't mean that we have to give up our job or we have to give up our ashram. Right? In fact, we follow the basic principles of varna and ashram, but apply the devotional perspective and devotional practice to all of those activities that we perform. Right? We don't give up things artificially, knowing that, if we're Sibya's age, what are we doing? What's our service? We're a student, and she's a good student. You're a good student, I hope. Good. What about you? Good. Trying. He's trying. So, and if we've graduated, and just like Apurva's just graduated and she's going to work this year, right? So she's starting her career, but it's a career of engagement. She's still, when Apurva wanted to get second initiation, she was just starting her university studies. And I was worried because I spoke to her mum and dad and I said, is it a good idea for her to get her Brahmin initiation? Because really we want her to be, she's got to be a student, not a pujari or a whatever, right? And they said, no, it's okay. And, she's maintained her sadhana and she's excelled in her studies. And so she's already last year, she had a placement and she'll continue studying her chartered CPA, right? Sponsored by her employer. She got high distinctions in her study, which everybody will applaud, right? Perfect. Very well. But more important is she chanted her 16 rounds. She did her devotional service, right? And she taught dancing and blah, 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 right? So a very active, very busy life for a devotee, right? We have our morning program, evening program, and we still maintain our duties. But the main purpose of life in that is not necessarily to pursue although we have to, we still have our ashram duties and our occupational duties, but main focus in order to perfect those activities is on spiritual life, right? Sadhana, which is regulated. I just had a really wonderful week with Prahlad Maharaj, and Prahlad Maharaj, I was thinking, boy, I'm feeling good. I wonder why. And, it's good association. It's powerful. And he's very regulated. 9 o'clock breakfast, 1:30 lunch, 6 o'clock dinner, which is too much. I can't eat that many meals in a day. Or I have to have little. But it was just, he's very regulated, and by that association, I felt invigorated, right? And this is valuable for all of us. That sadhana and that steadiness of practice is super powerful in elevating us, and association with devotees who are like that, right? Super powerful. So just by associating with a devotee who's associating with that practice or that process, we feel elevated, right? When we come to the temple, how do you feel? If you don't come to the temple on a daily basis, how do you feel? Ordinary, right? Something missing. Like, it's interesting, isn't it? Everybody came to the temple on New Year's Day. Where are they now? Prabhupada made the interesting comment, every day is a new year. Every day is New Year's Day, because it's the beginning of the next year. A day further down the track. So we should be coming to the temple every day, not just on New Year's Day. Right? Although this is a sign of piety. At least people understand that coming on New Year's Day is important. Because the bit they miss is that actually you're supposed to come every day. So, why is that the focus? The focus is because that's what Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nasochati Nakankshati Samasaveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. The bhakti process gives rise to this Brahman consciousness, right? We become aware of the Para Brahman, that's Krishna, and we become aware of the regular Brahman, right? Who's that? Who's the regular Brahman? Huh? Yeah, who's that? Us. Yes, us. So, in the process of becoming Krishna conscious, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, we become peaceful. Prabhupada says here, happy. But the translation of Prasannatma is happy, right? Peaceful. We see everybody equally. This is very important, right? Super important. In the material world, people don't see each other equally. They see higher and lower. They become envious if somebody's higher. They want to pull them down to promote themselves. Right? This is not Brahma Bhuta. Samasaveshu Bhuteshu. It's seeing girls, boys, he's got more money than me, oh, they're better educated. He drives a better car than me. Let's criticize him, right? Because actually I want that car. This is what goes on in the material world. Oh, look at the house. Oh, his kids are better educated than mine. Ooh, boo. Right? Competition. And it can be cutthroat. Right? You know better than me. I come from Australia. In Australia, everybody lines up. Right? I don't know if you've noticed it in Australia. If you're going to an event, what happens? People line up. In India, what do people do? What do? Overtake. Yeah. I've been at the bank or at somewhere, different places, and I'm getting served, and then all of a sudden somebody pushes in and, what are you doing? So competitive. Why? Because you can miss out. Right? In Australia, broadly, you don't miss out. Except, when there's COVID or something, and then there's a run on the toilet paper. Right, this is the biggest disaster. Oh no, the toilet paper's run out. So competition, it's fierce in the material world, even in Australia. It's fierce. But when one's elevated to the spiritual platform, we don't care. Okay, we still do our duty, but we depend on Krishna for the results. Right? Labha labho jaya jayo. Sukha dukkha same kritva. This is the mood of a devotee. He's equipoised in happiness and distress, victory and defeat, loss or gain. Right? Steady. Sukha dukkha same kritva. Na sochati na kankshati. So peaceful. The devotee is peaceful. Because the modes of material nature and all of that envy and competition is removed from the character of the devotee. Still does his duty. We still work hard. right? And we still compete, actually. In fact, the devotees are almost the most competitive people that I've met, right? Especially when it comes to book distribution, right? It's cutthroat, you know. And this is not a new problem, by the way. I remember asking my Guru Maharaj, it looks like, you know, in the material world it's called a dog-eat-dog world, right? But I said, it looks like here it's a swan-eat-swan world. Competition. Who's got the best spot? Right? Who's distributing the most books and who's got the best spot? And who's upsetting the most people? Ooh, bad. Right? They're distributing the most books, of course, right? But the biggest demons are those devotees who upset others. Right? But people who manage sales broadly, they know the best salespeople usually upset people. At least a few people. This is common. You don't upset people when you sell books, do you, Sibya? No, I know. So, yes, competition may be there, but our main competition is to be a more, let's say, more sincere devotee and always strive to serve. This is and you know, you'll see in our community there are devotees who are just focused on service. And that's what they do. And they're happy doing it. Cooking, cleaning, puja, book distribution, fundraising, and they just go on and do their service day in, day out, not necessarily looking for distinction or, yeah, it may come, but that's not what we're looking for. Main focus of the devotees is service, seva. Prabhu, what would you like me to do? And you tell them what you want them to do, and have a guess what they do. What do you think they do? What do they do, Sibya? They go and do it. And they do it day in, day out. And they don't get upset. Oh, you didn't recognize me. How come you didn't recognize me? Right? They just do their service. They don't gossip. They don't compete. They just do their service. And this is what we're looking for. Because with that mood and that mentality, prashanatma, peaceful. Samasaveshu bhuteshu, they see everybody equally and they treat everybody equally. Nasochati nakanchati, they don't lament and they don't hanker for gimme, gimme, gimme. How come you're not recognizing me? I'm such a great devotee. Right? No, they don't. They just want to serve. This is a right mood, right? What's the last line? Mad bhaktim labate param. So what's the supreme acquisition, the supreme gain? What's the supreme gain? Yeah. Pure devotional service is the supreme gain because that gives the most satisfaction. And when the devotees are competing to be the best devotee, what are they doing? They're offering service to others all the time, actually. They're not saying, look at me, right? Or, yeah. Not that I ever watched it very much, but it's a digression. I won't. But it's very interesting. You know, have you heard of Kath and Kim? No, it's okay. Anyway, I think it was Kath. She would say, "Look at me." But that's not the mood of a devotee. The mood of a devotee is, look at Krishna. Look how beautiful Krishna is. Or look at all of the other devotees and look how beautiful they are because of their mood of service and surrender. And we see that actually that's most primarily exhibited especially in our preaching and especially in our book distribution, right? Because that's actually the mood of giving to and serving others. Right? This is the mood of a devotee. Not look at me, look at me, look at me. Right? But rather look at Krishna. And you'll be elevated. Right? Chant Hare Krishna. And you'll be benefited. Right? This is the mood of the devotees. And we know, we'll be praised and we'll be criticised too. Right? You Hare Krishnas, you're taking up all the parking spots and you're clogging up the streets and there's all these Indians coming here. I don't know if you've noticed, but walk around the suburb and, sometimes there's just people scowling at you, right? They scowl at me anyway, right? Because they think, there's the temple president of the Hare Krishna temple. All these people coming here and clogging up the place. Right? So we know. People will say, what a wonderful, you're good people, you feed everyone. Right? They'll say that. Then they say, why all these Indians coming here? They won't say it, but we know what's going on. We can see what's going on in their heads. Have you noticed that? You're all blissfully absorbed on the Brahma Buddha platform, so you don't see these things. Right? Brahma Buddha Prashanatma. Very good. But devotees will be criticised. Prabhupada encouraged the devotees, go to jail, but keep chanting Hare Krishna. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go to jail, but get the idea. So anyway, this is really important because this is the last point that Prabhupada makes. An intelligent person doesn't pursue material existence in the competitive, nature of competition on a material platform. You should be listening to me. I'm more important than you. Right? This is what people think. Right? Whereas we cultivate the mood of a devotee, which is, how can I serve? Something needs improvement. We get together, we talk about it constructively, and we work out collectively, how do we improve things for the benefit of everybody? This is called Ishtagoshti. Not criticise this, criticise that. Blah, 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 blah. That's actually just prajalpa. And we're not into prajalpa. There is a certain amount of what might be called material talks in managing, how many of you are householders? Most of you, right? So you have to manage household affairs, right? You talk about the price of electricity? Yep. Do you talk about the price of groceries? Do you look at how much money your boss gave you when you got paid? Do you check it? Of course you do, right? That's all mundane stuff, isn't it? So there's a certain amount of what we do that is prajalpa. But Bhaktivedanta Thakur points out that kind of prajalpa, which is focused on supporting our devotional practice, is actually Krishna conscious. right? Because it supports devotional service. It's not a bad thing, right? But we do have to be careful amongst the community of devotees where we might become unconstructively critical. This is a major problem for the bhakti culture, right? Constructive criticism, when delivered with love and affection, is always supportive, isn't it? And helpful. That's the mood of a devotee. Whereas, pick. This is not the mood of a devotee. Adosha dashi, gunagrahi. All devotees look for the good, and we see the negative, but we don't focus on it. Or if we do, any critique is delivered with affection, ideally. Affection, to support and to encourage and to improve broadly for everyone's benefit, not pull somebody down. But it's not the mood of a devotee. Right? So that's why the focus is on devotional practice and surrender to who? The Guru, right? And surrender to the devotees, surrender to the process. So we surrender to Prabhupada, we follow in the, and Prabhupada exemplified this, we follow in the footsteps of the Goswamis. What's the first thing that the Goswamis is described as doing in the Sad Goswami Ashtakam? Who knows? The first 2 or 3 words. 2 things that they were doing. Krishnot kirtana gana natana paro, right? And Prabhupada describes Krishna kirtan, but a particular type of kirtan, ut kirtan. Ut. And what's that? Utsav, right? Enthusiastic kirtan. And with the enthusiastic kirtan comes what? What comes with enthusiastic kirtan? Dancing. Dancing. And what's that a symptom of? What's the dancing a symptom of? Prema. Right? Prema, happiness. A symptom of bhakti, actually. Yeah. So this is our business. Sankirtan, dancing, and then next verse, Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipuno, study. Right? Study. Study. Right. Even our study is ecstatic. Right? And it's all focused on becoming a servant, serve the holy name, serve the Sankirtan. And study is also predicates book distribution. This is classic Hare Krishna, pop goes the Bhagavad Gita, right? This is what we do, chant Hare Krishna, study Prabhupada's books, distribute the books. Why? Because this is following in the footsteps of the Goswamis, which is what we're supposed to do. These are the basic practices that bring us eventually to the point of Gopi Bhava, right? And Hey Radhe Brajadevi Ke Chalalite, Krishna, where are you? Radharani, where are you? The higher levels of devotion where there's that feeling of separation. Right? If we are fighting and competing amongst ourselves, we are not going to get to the Gopi Bhava stage. Right? So we've got to learn to appreciate each other, support each other. If somebody's doing something where there needs to be a correction, work out how to do that cooperatively. Right? That's how to do it. We do that, and we do that with the support of our seniors and our friends, our peers. This is probably the hardest part of living a devotee life is living with each other. It's not always easy because I want something, you want something, and what I want is opposite to what you want. So how do we work that out? Well, we work out, what does Krishna want? And that's higher. I've got to give up what I want and do what Krishna wants. And Krishna may want that I do what you want. Ouch! Huh? But that's how we make advancement, actually. And that's the key to progress in ISKCON, really, is working together and to preach. Chant Hare Krishna, book distribution especially. And book distribution is, we distribute a lot of books in the marathon, which I thank everybody for. We're going to have a prize-giving ceremony on the 11th. I think it's Sunday the 11th. And Dave Maharaj is going to be here, so please attend. If you did some book distribution, you'll get a prize. May only be a little prize, but you'll get something. Just to show our appreciation for, that's really, Prabhupada sacrificed his life to create this literature and to distribute it. And of course, it's for our benefit that we do that. So working together cooperatively to make advancement is our goal, our business. And maybe is challenging, but if we do it according to devotional principles, avoiding the competitiveness, the material competitive, which is usually, I want to win and I want to see you lose, right? But our competitiveness is everyone's a winner. Okay? Okay. Who wants to have breakfast? Everybody, okay. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamstam Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathantam Swam Sadivam Shadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya